fair enough. Um,
What
but
the
yeah,
fuck?
long story short, there was a newer version of the anime, and it was bad. Like the CGI just made it really like abrasive on the eyes, and I was just like,
Yeah,
but maybe this would be good. I don't know.
no, there's a trailer for this thing, and yeah, I mean, I haven't actually watched the trailer, but just looking at the still from it is kind of, I don't know, it looks a little bit like PS2 graphics because of the style. Like it's not,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I am exaggerating a bit, but just because of like the style with the CGI, it just doesn't it doesn't go together well.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Oh, Rob, what was that picture I sent you again?
Oh no.
I thought I might as well try. Just see, like, give it like less than a couple of minutes.
Oh, the one that said.
Oh, you mean grab on? Oh, I'd love that so much. Right, go on then, Dan.
Yeah, I picked Blade Runner because it's a good film.
I mean, it's all right.
And we all agreed. My film.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got to try and think of something now.
Well, Dan, you don't have to go through the whole rigmarole if you're too tired.
I can, because it has some kind of significance to my life, because it is one of them. It's kind of one of them films that kind of changed like my taste in like certain things, like cyberpunk, like that kind of genre, like the way that it influenced like a whole subgenre of sci-fi, and it kind of did the same to me. Whereas I kind of got into more. I think I kind of experienced it more from like from something that is inspired by it, and then I come back to actually watching the film like later in my life from when I played. So basically, I played a game that was influenced by Blade Runner. So it's called Shadowrun. So basically,
I knew it was going to be that.
Yeah. So when I first started,
you mean the board game?
No,
or the video game,
the role play. So when I was
yeah,
really young, I kind of started role play when I was probably about 8 or 9. And this bloke who got us into playing like role play and stuff, we used to play it a lot. And yeah, because I really like the setting. Like you had like the cybernetics and because it's a weird game because it's cybernetic, it's sci-fi and fantasy mixed together.
Yeah, cyberpunk basically.
Yeah, it's cyberpunk, but there's magic in it.
Yeah,
whatever. So yeah, so as time went on, I got old enough to actually watch the film and appreciate the actual the genre.
Yeah.
And like when I was like, as you get into like understanding like what's good and bad, it's like when you realize like the quality of the film, like you think like it was made in 81. I think it was made in 81 and it was released in 82 or something like that. But no, like the visuals in it, and especially when I bought the Blu-ray, the 4-disc or 5-disc Blu-ray, and you watch it in HD, and it's just so like the visuals are so great. But yeah, like even the story, like as you get older and you understand like the moral dilemmas that he's like the good guy fighting the bad guys, and then you find out that the bad guys are actually victims of a horrible society. So it's like there's like so many levels to the film, like commercialism, like morality. But yeah, it's just
slavery.
Yeah, but it's one of them films that kind of stuck with me all my life, and it's just it's like probably one of my favorite films. I'd say Back to the Future, but I think Back to the Future is probably the film that I'm like most fond of. I wouldn't say it's the greatest film. It's just the one film I've watched as a kid like a lot. But yeah, I'd say Blade Runner is probably
you've got the Shadowrun connection with this, so like it's more meaningful, isn't it?
Yeah. So like like all sci-fi films, it was kind of there's like multiple films that kind of influenced my tastes, like in like sci-fi. One was say like Fifth Element. You got like Terminator 2. This like I don't say Alien, but like Independent Day. So I used to watch like loads of different sci-fi action films. But yeah, it's influenced my life probably quite a lot, like my tastes in like a lot of things. Yeah, so that's basically why I picked the film, because it's really good.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I've never actually played anything Shadowrun related. Like obviously I've never done actual like
proper
live role play or anything, but I've seen plenty of the like Shadowrun video games and stuff, and especially the newer ones. They look really cool, like, and like they're very true to like the actual role play game. But yeah, they look cool. I've just never actually delved into them.
Yeah, because I've also played like I've not played the actual Cyberpunk roleplay. So the idea behind the Cyberpunk game system was the bloke watched Blade Runner and he was so into the film that he created his own roleplay system that you could play characters in that kind of world.
Yeah.
And then that just went massive, and then like loads of people kind of did the same type of thing. And I've played I think it's Savage Worlds, which is a different.
Yeah, Savage Worlds. I was going to say I couldn't remember the name of it, but I've watched a role play series that someone did on YouTube, and that's what it was based on, Savage Worlds.
But yeah, so that I've actually played a Cyberpunk, so it's like so many layers down, like, and the trickle of like, say the Blade Runner being like the tip of the mountain, and like the trickle down the mountain, and like the game I played. Is it Interface Zero? It's basically a Cyberpunk Savage Worlds, but it's got all these references to like Akira, Blade Runner. I don't know if it's got Ghost in the Shell, but all them type of films, and it's actually really good. Like if you ever get to play Savage Worlds, try and play that one.
Yeah, it sounds really cool because it's got quite a unique system, like for dice rolling as well, doesn't it? Like, was it the Fates thing or whatever it's called?
So the way it works is you have different attributes and skills, and they're all related to the percentile dice or percentile. So the 7 dice. So you start off on D4, then D6, and then as you improve your skills, you get bigger dice, and you have like challenge ratings, and it's a really simple system. But by diverging into roleplay, and I could talk.
Yeah, we should probably yeah. Me and you will just sit here talking about it for like 2 hours, and then everyone else will be like,
talking about film.
"What about the movie?"
But yeah, there's so many different layers when you watch it again. Like it's one of, I don't know if it's one of the greatest films for like world building, because there's so much kind of, even though it's only an hour and 57 minutes or hour and 52 or whatever, it's like there's so much lore, and like it's believable in some respects, because like when you see him sitting in the when he's eating the Chinese, and it's like you can feel like if you was there, you could like smell it or taste it, and you can like.
Japanese, not Chinese, but carry on. But yeah, no, like because one of the things I would say about this movie, like obviously I liked it the least, and like I had problems with it, but one of the things I was saying to Rob that I very much noticed with this is that realistically, not a lot actually happens in this movie content-wise. It is mostly world building, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But like when you were saying it there, like it is very good at building the world. Like I don't necessarily think it's amazing at the character stuff overall. Like some of them are good, but most of them I couldn't find myself caring about or wanting to know more about. But the world building is great. Like I'm interested in the world, and I find it interesting. And
I think it's probably done like that for the sake of like, because the android, not the androids, replicants. The skin jobs as they call them, the replicants. Because I know it's terrible, isn't it? But so they're supposed to be like slaves, so they don't really have a backstory because they're only supposed to live for 4 years. So it's kind of, this idea is this person is hunting these people, and he's like hunting animals, right? He's looking for these specific people that look like this, like they could be anyone, right? It's just he's got a picture of them, and he finds them, and he kills them. There's no real like I like the bit with like Roy, because you understand his character. Like he's the only person they kind of go into any detail, and I think it's because where he's like the leader, you want him to be like the main adversary, so they give him a little bit of backstory. But like Trish, or whatever her name is, literally all you know about her is that she was a pleasure model. And
was it Pris?
Pris?
Am I remembering right? I can't remember
the
name.
one with the weird pompon haircut with the black eyes.
Yeah, I thought her name was Pris. I'm gonna have to look it up now.
But all you know that she's just like basically a prostitute replicant. But
it's Pris. Yeah.
But yeah, they I don't think they do it on. I don't think they do it on purpose because it's not really that kind of thing where they're kind of showing you the world that how the world could be if this happens, or because I think the second film expands on it, but it kind of makes it a bit more. They do more of like how bad the world is in the future, and that by the fact. Have you seen the second film?
Not yet. No, I was going to watch it today, but I had a headache, so I went to sleep.
So definitely watch the second one because the
I'm gonna watch it
visuals in it are fucking stunning. Like it looks like say twice as good because it's got modern. But still, there's so much to this film where you look at the background in it and it's like fuck, like all the pyramid things, they're actual models. And when you actually see the models, they're like fucking hell. Like you would have thought it was I'd say real building. But yeah, a lot of it is just like it's all practical effects, and it's just
I love it like that. To be fair, like this is a very quick side tangent. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but there's a video game coming out. I think it's Square Enix doing it, but all the like designs for the world are being done with like actual like models that they're making, like really high detail things, and then they're just obviously capturing that and then like using it that way, and it looks fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the like I do think it's important to strike a balance between world and character development. But having said that, I don't think they wanted to here. And like, okay, I'm a firm believer that just because something is intended doesn't mean that it's good. And in this case, I do think it is slightly detrimental. But I kind of respect it at the same time because but while I don't think it makes it better than it could have been, in a way I do kind of like the fact that they wanted to sacrifice the character stuff to build the world more, which realistically that is what spawned all the things like Shadowrun and stuff. Because if it had been more about the characters and less about the world, it probably wouldn't have been as beloved as it ended up being.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's based off the actual book, so it's I've never read the book and I don't really know anything about it. But it could be that in the source material they didn't really go into their backstories. So
possible,
that could be kind of a thing because I think Ridley Scott's very much the case that he likes to do everything like how it was instead of going.
I'll jump in on that for you because I studied the book at uni.
I was just about to ask you that.
There you go.
Ridley Scott never read the book.
Never read the book.
Yeah. But no,
how different is it?
It's pretty different. I mean, like it's still sort of like the same base idea of kind of like what the world is, but yeah, the characters are completely different. But I think you don't need to focus on the characters so much in something like this, because I think the reason for sort of developing the characters and sort of making a bit more of them would be for you to feel sympathy for them. But I think with the world being set up the way it is and the replicants sort of being in the situation that they're in, you already feel sympathy for them from that. So I don't think it's a bad decision
thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which again, like I think I just want more from the characters because like that's kind of what I expect from a story. But I fully register that like really the world is the more important thing here because you get the same kind of evoked feelings and stuff that you would if you developed the characters anyway. Plus, like Dan was saying, considering almost everyone in this movie could have been a replicant, they would, apart from the whole implanted memories thing, they wouldn't really have a backstory. So the backstory you would have would be the world building because it'd be based on like the race as opposed to the individuals.
Also, like the fact of where Rachel, she finds out that her whole life is a lie because she's just been made in the lab. It's like the whole character building stuff it doesn't matter because they've just made their memories. So it kind of it's quite clever in that this aspect of like you might have had a backstory, but it's just fake. So it's
to be honest, I find her to be the weakest character in this movie, because they kind of set her up to be interesting at first. Like she seems quite cold and meticulous, and then they immediately give you she's actually a replicant, but she's an experiment that we've given her some implanted memories to see if this can affect like the kind of emotion that they could possibly produce. But then she literally just becomes an empty shell for the entire rest of the movie. Then there's that really uncomfortable, basically rape scene, which I do not appreciate at all and was not okay. And then also just at the end, him being like, "Do you love me?" Like it wasn't a question, that was a demand. And then she's like, "Yeah, you're the only person in this world that I actually have right now, so but sure."
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like they really wasted. Like I don't feel like they should have gone into her character more. I just feel like they wasted what they had tried to set up in the first place, because she could have been the most interesting character in this movie. Like obviously you see the replicants. What's the word? I keep wanting to say administering, but that's not the word. They're showing emotion clearly.
Yeah.
And like you could argue that's just the fact of acting. It's hard to act emotionless when you're doing things, but I think the point was to show you that they can feel emotion, and that either the information about them not having emotions is outdated, or it's propaganda to make people feel better about them just being killed.
Probably.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, that's one of the interesting questions that the film raises, I think, because you got the whole thing about them being genetically exactly the same to humans, and sort of you've implanted these memories and all of that kind of thing. So it's sort of, where do you draw the line between what's a human and what's not a human, like regardless of whether you've made it? Because I think if you're genetically exactly the same, as well as having all these memories and everything, I don't see how you couldn't have emotions. So I take that as propaganda.
Well, Rachel's the first, isn't she, with implanted memories?
Well, so that's another question, isn't it? Because the origami unicorn at the end, which is the reference to String, then that would suggest that he's also got implanted memories, which means that Rachel wouldn't be the first.
Yeah, that's true. It's because it's hard to say, because like again, although they do well building the world, there is, and I think it's intentional, there are a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of like theory crafting moments of like, well, what's legit and what's not, because like the guy who makes the origami stuff, like I immediately assumed he was also a replicant, just because he was being kind of weird. Like I know that sounds strange, but just because of
that's very British, John.
It is, but like, I'm sure you get what I mean. Like with the whole thing of him like constantly making little models out of stuff, I was like, I feel like they're trying to tell us something here, that like he's just doing stuff. But it was also weird that like I don't really get why they did this part, which was that they had him talking in I'm not sure what language he was talking in. I know that the guy who was translating was Japanese, so I would have assumed it was also Japanese, but I couldn't make it out well enough to know. But he was speaking a different language the entire film until the end, and then he spoke English. And I was like, wait, why did you do that though? Like, is it supposed to be the whole curtain thing of like, nothing is as it seems? Like as soon as you pull back the curtain, things are different.
That's actually quite an interesting point. I don't know if you know this, but there's a bit of a controversy behind the scenes in this film, like in the making of. Like, basically, the writer and Harrison Ford are like, they know for a fact that Harrison Ford isn't a replicant, but in Ridley Scott's mind, he knows that Harrison Ford's character, Deckard, is a replicant. So Ridley Scott made the film thinking that he was, but the writer had a completely opposite distinction of it. So I'm not sure if that was helped the film or hindered it in a way, but it's kind of interesting that there was two conflicting viewpoints about if Harrison Ford is or isn't, and it's like, what's going on here? But that makes that you can make your own mind up in a way. I do like that point.
That's the important thing, I think, is that they don't make it clear despite those opinions. But I do wonder if that actually was the cause of one of Rob's biggest gripes about this movie.
Yeah, possibly. I think yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't know whether it comes down to Harrison Ford being Harrison Ford and being a grumpy bastard at times, or if it comes down to Ridley Scott's direction. But that scene at the end where he finds the origami unicorn, I was kind of like, this is this is basically what the whole film's been about, and it could potentially confirm that you're a replicant, and you've just sort of picked it up and gone, yeah, whatever.
It's like, whatever, yeah. Am I? Like, who gives a crap?
Oh yeah, for the record, because I didn't specifically say it at the time, because in case anyone hadn't watched it, I didn't want to spoil it. But literally, when the film started and the text came up on the screen about replicants, my brain went, "I bet the main character's one." And I was like, "Oh fuck! Please don't let it be that, or please don't let it be really obvious." And then it got to the end, and I was like, "Well, actually, I should say." I didn't notice the significance of the unicorn at first. I was more focused on being like, what the fuck? Why is that there? And then I was talking to Rob about it afterwards, and then he said it to me, and I was like, oh, because he was like, Rob said like, oh, it's, potentially confirming he's a replicant, and I was like, oh, because of the dream, and it could be implanted memories. He was like, yeah. But I'm completely okay with how they did it. But despite the fact that I had the thought literally in the first second of the movie, I'm totally okay with how they did it, because if they'd made it really obvious, or if they'd met, like, either way, if they'd been like, no, he definitely isn't because he's just met someone who he's known for 10 years or whatever, or if they'd made it really obvious that he is because he wouldn't be able to find any records of himself from 4 years ago or some bullshit, I don't think I'd have liked it. But to be fair, at the same time, I think an interesting idea is the fact that he could be like a new kind of replicant that they programmed to last for more than 4 years. So any of those things could still be arguable, and it's nice that they left it open-ended. Also, I only saw you out the corner of my eye there, Ben. I'm assuming you sneezed.
Yes.
But it looked like you were headbanging because I just saw you go, fucking love replicants.
But like, there's, the whole thing about the film is to show that they're replicants. Their eyes, or their irises kind of glow?
Yeah, they reflect the light.
There's a bit where Harrison Ford is standing, and you can see it has that effect. And I think they're trying to hint, but I don't. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, because it's been years. Like, since it's come out, he's always kind of said, "Oh, he is one, and he isn't one," and it's gone back and forth. But
well, I mean, considering what Ben just said about the director and the writer having different opinions on it, like, I think that kind of tells you that no one really actually knows. Because, I mean, is Deckard a character in the book?
No, it's a different character in the book, but it's Deckard is pretty much a sort of like an avatar for a character in the book. So it's
okay. Yeah. So the character in the book, is he a replicant, or is there any indication of the possibility, or?
There's a possibility, but probably a stronger possibility, but it's not confirmed in the book either.
Okay, that's fair enough. At least, despite not reading it, he didn't change that.
Well, so this is another strange thing, actually, because depending on who you talk to about it, people will tell you like very different sort of reactions that Philip K. Dick had about it. So like, Philip K. Dick is the guy who wrote the book. And some people say he was like really unhappy with Blade Runner, and like he refused to watch it, and he hated the script and all of that kind of thing. But then some other people say like when he attended test screenings, he like turned around to the audience and was like, "Yeah, this is what I had in mind." So like, yeah, it's just even that is ambiguous.
This whole thing sounds like a fucking clusterfuck.
What did you say the book was called?
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's like I said, like when I studied it at uni, I literally like took one look at the title and I was like, oh, I see what's happening.
I'm just Googling it now to see if I can find like an example of what he said.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching that. You said about the bit where they have the love scene as such. Yeah, I remember watching it again, like when I first got the Blu-ray of it, and I was like, "Oh, actually, this is a bit bit awkward, bit sinister." But I don't know. It's kind of
I get the point of the scene. I get that he's like trying to get her to open up and be
Yeah.
true to her emotions and stuff. Like, I get that that's what they're going for, but it's rapey as fuck and it doesn't work. Like, it's really upsetting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not the most comfortable thing, is it?
No, there are ways to do that scene to show that he's trying to be there for her and that he's trying to get her to feel her emotions, rather than him forcing himself on her. And then it's basically sexual assault. Like, no matter how you look at it, that's what it is. And just because she reciprocates, like, that doesn't mean that she wants to, because if you look at that without any context, that is a man assaulting a woman and her thinking, I better kiss him back or he's gonna kill me. Like, that's what that scene is.
It's funny because like I always look at Blade Runner and Fifth Element kind of like hand in hand, because I think, I don't know, a lot of why I like both of them is for the same thing, because of like how they build the world and that kind of thing. But sort of Blade Runner is just sort of, well, it's got like a more solid story underneath it. And yeah, like they've even got the parallel in that scene where like Bruce Willis kisses.
And I think the reaction in Fifth Element is much more appropriate, and he actually learns from it.
Yeah.
Oh man, wouldn't it have been great if, like, which one came out first?
Blade Runner was like 15 years before.
Damn. Like, I had a feeling that was the case, but I was hoping it'd be the other way around, because I was just like, oh, wouldn't it be great if Rachel was just like, never without my permission?
I imagine what's his name? Oh shit, what's his name? John Luke Besson? Is that it? The guy who wrote Fifth Element?
Luke Besson.
Oh, is it Luke Besson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine he probably wrote Fifth Element after watching Blade Runner, to be honest.
And then went, I mean, we'll change that scene though.
I have moles. I'm gonna make it funny. Well, yeah, it's other than that bit, which I can kind of, it's like, you know, that it's just bad taste in some respects. Like, I think it might have been okay back whenever. It's always the case when you look at films of like.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Films of
That's
age.
the time thing.
Of their time, yeah.
It's kind of when you watch 70s like exploitation films and you're like, this might have been okay back then, but now it's like this.
But I'm not okay with it now.
Yeah, they're so bad taste. It's like,
it's
cringy.
It's a weird experience. Like, obviously, this is the first time I've seen this, but I always find that it's really weird watching a movie that you loved as a kid, or like just years and years ago, and then you watch it again and you're like, oh fuck, none of this is okay. Like, I know it's because the world has changed and we've changed, and you know, we've realized things that just shouldn't have ever been a thing. But you watch and you're like, oh man, how are we okay with this?
I have that with every Quentin Tarantino film.
I gotta say, I can agree with you, Rob.
But literally, man, like it's so. I said to the others the other day, I think, I can't remember if it was in the film.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's one of the biggest disappointments of becoming an adult, man, is watching Quentin Tarantino films going, oh, that's a bore.
Yeah. I mean, what was the thing in Pulp Fiction? The did he say dead end shed?
Yeah, the
story.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it's the way that he kind of delivers it as well. It's like, it's not wrong. It's like,
this is a thing,
well, that's the problem. It's sorry.
I was just going to say, like, there's a really long argument between him and Spike Lee, where like Quentin Tarantino is like, oh, I demand the right to write any character I want as a writer, and Spike Lee's just like, yeah, you can, just stop saying the fucking N-word.
well, that's the thing. Like, I think the thing that bothers me the most about it's not that he wrote the word into the story. It's not that he wrote a white character saying it. It's not that he wrote a white character saying it several times. It's not that he wrote a white character saying it several times for pretty much no reason, although those are all things that are a problem with it. The biggest problem is the fact that he cast himself to say the word, which means that he just wanted to fucking say it.
Yeah.
That's like Spike Lee said, man. Like, it's like he fetishizes the word. Like, it's just.
Yeah. It is, but hang on. I think Pat has a counterpoint.
No, it's not. It's just that. Actually, like, I read the sort of debate. Well, debate argument between the two, and it's not. He doesn't even have a problem with the word being in it. He has a problem with how comfortable he was saying the word.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
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 is
was
a
like
problem.
He enjoyed saying it.
He obviously
was,
says it in his personal ways.
yeah, pretty much, and that's where Spike Lee's issue comes from.
I mean,
that's a
yeah, I
shame,
don't blame him.
because if you actually like read Spike Lee's argument, like he is basically just going like, you are saying this a lot, like what's behind this?
Yeah.
And Quentin Tarantino's just like, I can write any character I want. It's like, yeah, you're missing the point.
You
mate.
can just stop saying the word and being so happy about it. Yeah, it's like it's the whole like I don't know, I doubt many of you will have heard of any of this shit, but there was a lot of controversy with like some streamers and stuff here and there about saying the N-word on stream, and then like apologizing a lot and being like, oh, you know, I'm so sorry, it was a mistake, I didn't mean to.
Mm.
But like, okay, there are times where you can say a word that you normally wouldn't say, and it just kind of happens. But generally speaking, if you say a word by accident, it's probably because you fucking use it.
Yeah, you
you're
don't.
not
Like
thinking
it's in your
right.
vocabulary.
It's like your consciousness. If
Yeah.
you use a lot of the same word, you're more likely to say it when you're not thinking about it because it's always being used.
Yeah, because if you use it often, it's fresh in your mind and it's like
Yeah.
constantly refreshed. Whereas if you never used it, well, it can still happen. It's incredibly unlikely that you're going to randomly go, oh, and then drop an N-bomb.
Yeah, like the storage.
Well,
Yeah.
I just looked over to the spreadsheet because I was like, what film are we talking about?
Oh, bless them. Where is the digress?
To go back
How
to
did
the
we even
film,
get onto this?
Because of the rapey stuff in Blade Runner.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
my bad.
so like, this is only the second time I've watched Blade Runner since I decided I actually enjoyed the film. Like, it's probably one of the films that I've watched the most, and I've hated it most of the time. I think a lot of the reasons for it is that I didn't quite get it. I felt it was quite slow. Like when I was younger, I didn't like slow moving films.
Oh, I think most people don't.
What do you mean when you were younger, Pat?
Oh, I'm quite old now, aren't I?
Really? Quite old.
Like when I was a teenager.
I mean, Pat, you know what I was getting at.
Don't listen to him, Pat.
Go on, Pat, carry on.
I watched each different version of the film. The director's cut, I remember watching. I think I must have been 16 or 17, and I was like, I don't understand how anyone enjoys this. I thought it was a load of rubbish. But as I've got older and the more times I've watched it, I've picked up different things about it, and I've got to a point now where it's probably one of the best made sci-fi films because it's sort of using things that are not common in other sci-fi films, like your alien stuff or your alien warfare, and I appreciate it for that.
I will say, I think it's basically got everything that I want from a sci-fi, because it's got that kind of like, well, it's that sort of thing of kind of taking kind of like concepts that are sort of real in the real world and sort of adding kind of unlimited technology and whatever, and seeing what people would do with it, and sort of the moral questions that come from that, which is that's.
Well, it's the fact of like old style views on slavery, right? And once you've made something that you can basically control, you can go, oh, wait a minute, we don't need real people. We can just send these people that we make, and they're basically slaves. And it's that kind of regurgitating like horrible history. It's that kind of thing where you've got the power, like it's all about corporations in Blade Runner, right? It's all about the big companies that own everyone, and it's that kind of, it's like, if that makes sense, it's you've got that kind of over exaggerated kind of colonialism again, whereas the corporations own the people and they own the world basically.
That's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because it all, it all kind of like rests on that thing of like, if we did have that technology and people were sort of able to do that thing, like I absolutely believe that they would. And yeah, it's really interesting to sort of consider like the morality around that, because on the one hand, you are literally sort of making something to take away the shitty jobs from real people, but then just because you've made it, is it real or not? So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really interesting morality question.
Yeah, because it's kind of like with RoboCop and Matrix. Like obviously, it's different kinds of things, but it's the same kind of concept of, you know, you've got full control over something, and like what is okay and what isn't okay to make them do or to use them for. Sorry, Pat, go on.
No, I was just listening to Robin Humphrey.
Oh, all right, fucking.
No.
Then you came in.
Just listening to what they were saying about colonialism and like corporations owning people. It sort of reminds me a bit of Alien as well. Alien does quite a bit of that, and I think it's a Ridley Scott thing, isn't it?
What did you say again? Sorry, Rob. I completely. It's actually quite interesting.
We're staggering this terribly.
It was so interesting that he left.
I had a beer in the freezer and I didn't want it to
Explode.
No, I was just saying that like the whole thing kind of rests on sort of the idea that, like, you know, if we had the technology to be able to do that, then we would do it. And then it's that kind of morality question that comes out of that, that's kind of, well, if you've made these people, then it takes away the shitty jobs that no one wants to do from actual living people. But then because you've made them sort of genetically the same as humans, and there's nothing to realistically separate them other than that you've made them, then is it morally right to sort of force them into it? It's a really interesting morality question.
Yeah, that's why they're good villains. Like Roy Batty is such a compelling villain. I think, even though he's got a limited lifespan, he still wants to confront his creator and find out why am I here? Why have I done this? And yet he still ends up like not really knowing, and it's just in his frustration he kills his father in a sense. So it's kind of like I kind of get and sympathize with him.
It's also like the mad scientist kind of idea as well, like, you know, like Frankenstein.
Yeah,
he makes this monster and it's like it's a marvel because he's actually brought someone back to life, or he's brought back a consciousness that can think.
Dead.
But then you got the other thing of yeah, it's like you've created a monster in some respects, and the monster's gonna want to know why you exist. Yeah.
And that's a really interesting scene where he confronts him about it all, because it's like, well, it's sort of, why did you make something that was able to think and feel things if all they were going to do is sort of work, basically? Which it's a little bit close to home when you put it like that, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. Like I was going to say that, you know, you saying that if we could do it, we would, but like it's basically what they do with us now anyway.
But no, I think it's such a good motivation for a scene, because you've got this guy, he's got a 4-year lifespan. All he can do is work and do nothing else. And yeah, I mean, like, what you would be pissed off about it, wouldn't you? But yeah, I really like that scene. And also, I think Deckard is such a clever character, and I almost wish that they went a little bit further into him being a replicant, because then you've got another layer of that morality, because it's like this guy who like doesn't value the lives of these replicants at all, and like all he does is go around and sort of kill them when it's time to kill him, kind of thing. But then if he's one himself, then that's like, if he's one and he's able to sort of reason with himself that what he's doing is okay, then yeah, that's a really interesting question as well.
That's also another thing about because they don't really go into it much, but in the Cyberpunk game they kind of, it's more of a thing. But like him being in the class and stuff, like a class ladder or class like boundaries. So like basically you're either nobody or you're somebody. And it's like he says to him like, oh, you want to be basically nobody. And I think that kind of it's not really explained much. As I said, in Cyberpunk there is this whole massive class divide where if you're not like well to do, or you've not got like a good job or something like that, you're basically a peasant and you live in the gutter. Whereas you've
Yeah.
got like the corporation, it's like you're something. So he's kind of got that morality of I need to be someone, but
Yeah.
then to be someone, I've got to kill other people. But I
Mm.
kind of
Mm.
I do because I have to. It's kind of the
Mm.
same like people doing shit jobs in this type of day and age. It's like I don't want to do this job, but I need to survive, and I
Yeah.
need to live like a life that I think's good for me. But I'm still going to do some. It's basically exploitation in some respects. But
Well, and
yeah,
to be fair, like the way that he's trying to live his life is basically how the replicants are trying to live their life. Like he doesn't want to be part of the system. He just wants to live a normal life. But he's getting dragged back in.
Yeah.
Mm.
One thing I do wonder though, like I don't know if I just missed something or if it's just purely because the guy that has one is like the creator of all this shit, so there's different rules for him. But I did find it weird that they were like, oh yeah, replicants are illegal, and then he's like, oh yeah, I've got this new replicant experiment that I'm doing.
I think it's just because he's the curator, and it's like because he's basically the top dog of the corporation, and
Yeah.
with the corporations in that type of world, and like all the other type of worlds,
They're exempt from the rules.
they're basically the god, and
Yeah.
they're above
That's
the
what I
law.
figured it probably was. It's just I felt like they could have been just like one or two words here or there to like alleviate that thought.
Mm.
Yeah, that's basically the idea. Is he's so like big that no one really can touch him because he's basically making people, right? He's making living, breathing, human-like people.
Yeah.
So he's kind of well, you see, his house is the bloody pyramid.
Yeah, and I guess if he's like the only one able to do this because he's the only one with like the skills and the mind to do it, like he's basically creating a workforce. So like he would get very specific what do you call it? Exemptions.
Oh yeah, it's always been that kind of like.
I mean, look at the Tories.
Well, that's the thing, like the games like Shadowrun and like Cyberpunk, it's always been like a anarchist type of game where your every like mission or the aim of the game is to go against the system.
Yeah.
Like the Cyberpunk game, like on the PC, you're going against the system. You're trying to do this, and it's always been like that. So yeah. Also, there's another thing that kind of it's a bit scary. It's the whole thing about animals. Like all the animals in the film
Yeah.
are fake. And
Yeah.
the idea of the animals being fake is like we've made every animal extinct in the world. So that's why he doesn't know what a turtle is. And that turtle taught us.
Mm.
He's
Well,
like,
see, I wondered about that thing. I wondered if it was because he was a replicant and didn't have the information, or if it was literally just because
there's no animal.
they hadn't, that they either don't exist anymore, or they hadn't either that, or that there aren't any like replicant tortoises because they're not beneficial in any way.
No, I think the idea is like literally there's no animals in the world because they've made them extinct.
Yeah,
They've died
but
off.
then I guess if they can make their own, then like this comes back to the other question: like, are they really extinct if we can just make them?
So that was another interesting thing with what's his name, Tyrrell, when he says about not being able to afford a real owl. It's I don't know that felt like I don't know like a
That's
really
very dystopian.
Than the real thing.
it just felt like a really big thing for me because it's like this guy he's like you could probably assume he's like one of the richest men in the world, and like they've decimated the planet to the point where like even he can only afford a replicant owl. Like it's
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good point.
He probably made it in theory.
Yeah, but like
Also-
even still, like he could probably afford a replicant one, even if he wasn't the one who could make them. But the real ones are so rare and precious that he's got no chance. Like, because obviously the world's been devastated, but like, what is the rest of the world like? Is it in a better state than that? Like, I would assume it probably is. If like pretty much probably the richest person in that place can't afford a real owl.
It just doesn't exist. Also, John, you need to watch the second film because they kind of go into the world a bit more.
That's kind of what I was hoping, which is why I plan on watching it, because I do want them
kind
to
of
delve into
explain
it
what
more.
I just said about the animals.
Mm.
or they kind of show an example of why there's no sequels.
Okay.
They're like
Is-
the ecosystem.
I was just going to say, is it just that we've destroyed the ecosystem and nothing can survive like naturally anymore?
Well, it's like it's really funny because like with our food now, right? Like over time, we're gonna run short on things because we're consuming more than we can produce.
Yeah.
Like for instance, like coffee or chocolate. Chocolate is one of them things where over time we're gonna run out because we're consuming more than we're making.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the same for if we don't stop consuming so much meat, the earth's going to go. It's going to heat up so much because there's so much methane from cows that
Yeah.
go
The emissions, they're ridiculous.
because they fart too much.
There's already in America at the moment. There's a chicken wing shortage, and it's like
I know.
it's sort of
FC.
it kind of shows you how easy it is to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I know this isn't to do with food, but I found out something today when I was looking up, because I saw about Windows 11 becoming a thing, and then Nick was like, "But wait, didn't they say that they weren't going to do a Windows 11? That it was just going to like upgrade?" And then I found an article that was talking about how releasing a new system, an operating system now is a bad idea because there's a silicone shortage in the world, and I was like, "Wait, what?" Apparently that's a thing right now.
So the memory chips.
Yeah.
That they put on like graphics cards and memory sticks that go in the computer. Basically, there's been a shortage. It's been a while because that's why graphics cards have gone really.
Well, it's because of COVID, isn't it? Everyone was buying a ridiculous amount of like gaming consoles and like PCs and stuff like that, and yeah, it's crazy.
So what happened was most of the chips are made in Japan, and they had two natural disasters. So the tsunami, which broke their production, and I think they had, I don't know if it was coronavirus, but basically there was like two natural disasters that basically halted their production of chips.
Yeah.
So then it is a knock-on effect. They can't make as many of some certain thing, and then the graphics cards, literally, people they sold out, and people buy like selling them for like 3 or 4 times their price.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like
So, yeah,
there's a lot of new graphics cards that you can't even buy on their own at the moment.
Nope.
You can only get them with an entire system.
Yeah, because I want to get a new graphics card for my computer, but they reckon it might take up to 2 years for it to sort itself out. 2 years. It's insane. But yeah, it's kind of, it's really weird. Like in when this film was made, they was talking about the stuff that's happening now, and it's quite scary when you watch the film and you think, fuck. Like you look at Disney, right? They've bought out all these small companies. They've bought out Marvel, Fox, all these. They're basically doing what these companies or these corporations have done in these films.
Yep.
And it's like, it's really scary that these people predicted this 40 years ago.
That's one of the scary things, man, isn't it? Because like, I think the last time I watched this, it would have been at least sort of like 5-6 years ago. And then yeah, when I started watching it this time, and it sort of flashes up the date, and it's like 2019. I don't know. At first, it's like, oh, we're in the future past this now as well. And then, kind of as you're watching it, it's like I think the only thing that they got wrong is like the speed of which this had all happened. Like,
Yeah.
like I absolutely believe that one day in the future we will be in this situation. We just haven't got there yet.
Don't forget, it's set in 2019. This film. So
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing we ain't got is space travel and flying cars.
Yeah.
And robot people.
Well, two things.
Well, you say that. You say that, but so in my bathroom, when sort of like you've had the shower on and the mirror's steamed up, from a certain angle, it looks like you've got the replicant eyes in the mirror.
The way they did that was they shined the light from a certain angle, and it basically lit up the back of their eyeball.
Oh man, that's making me feel a bit queasy.
Also, there's a bit in the film that I completely forgot about, and it's like one of these, the like moments in films that were quite synonymous backstage. Basically, there's a bit where she puts her hand through the glass, and I think she actually cut the tendons in her hand.
Oh shit! Really?
I think that's what happened because I remember she hit it because I watched it in some video about like bloopers in films where like moments in films where the actress or actor got injured, and it was I think is that one where she basically puts her hand through the glass and it fucking ruined her hand.
Oh man.
Let me have a look quickly. See if I can back up my fact.
Well, it's not a fact if you can't back that up.
I'm sure that was the case. I remember watching it thinking, oh, that's that bit where she like I'm sure she cut her hand or something. It fucked it. But,
seeing as Alec wasn't going to be here, I asked him if he had anything that he wanted to bring up. And there was a couple of bits. He said he thought it was very convenient that the one guy who can help the replicants get to Tyrrell is also the one guy who has a debilitating physical condition that shortens his lifespan. That is what makes him sympathise with them.
Well,
I kind of get that, like, because it's sort of, yeah, I get what he's saying, because it is the one person that like is going to take pity on them because he's got pretty much the same condition. Like, but I don't think it breaks anything.
I missed that, to be honest. Like, I knew he clearly had like some mental I'm never sure how to phrase what I mean. Like, he clearly had some sort of mental illness or disability, which is what which is well, no, that's the exact thing you don't want to say. Which I like saw as that's why he was kind of naive, and I assumed the reason he was sympathetic towards them is because he makes all these things and he sees them as like real things. I obviously missed the moment where they said that he had a like condition.
Yeah.
Oh, guys, I was wrong. Sorry, I was wrong. She didn't cut her hand. She elbowed the glass, and it was by accident because she slipped. And she chipped her elbow in 8 places.
Oh shit!
Oh,
and she's still got the scar.
I was going to say, yeah.
Surely, when you've chipped something in 8 places, that counts as a smash.
No, not if it's not the base part of it that's like properly fragmented.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
It was real glass. Yeah, it was real glass, and she accidentally elbowed it, and yeah, it fucked her elbow up.
Oh man,
how crazy is that?
It's pretty crazy.
Crazy.
That sounded really sarcastic, but I meant it.
And then another problem that Alec had with it is that he said he thought it was very convenient that Rachel shows up and saves Deckard from Roy at the precise moment he needs her to. Yeah, no, I don't think it breaks anything. It's a bit convenient, but it is
convenient, but that's just the movie.
Leon.
Like,
I think he's read far too much into that.
Oh, well, I don't think that's fair, but like it's absolutely a suspension disbelief just for movies in general. Like, it's the kind of thing that happens in movies. Like, people turn up at the right times. That's like saying if another superhero turns up to save Iron Man in like the Avengers, it's too convenient. It's like, well, yeah, but then the story wouldn't progress.
Yeah.
What it reminds me of a little bit, and this might be a little bit unfair because he's not here, but it reminds me of the first time I watched Breaking Bad, and I got to the end of the first episode and I was like, no, I don't want to watch anymore. That was all very convenient. And then sort of like a couple of years later, I was like, I think I was just saying that because I couldn't be bothered to watch anymore.
Yeah. And then you end up loving it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember us talking to you about that because Pat was like, "Oh no, it gets better after like the first season or whatever." And you were like, "Oh, I'm not watching a whole fucking season for it to get good." And I was like, "No, it's good all the way through. You just need to give it more of a chance."
I think that's part of what put me off, to be honest. I was like, I'm not sinking 7 hours into something before it gets good.
Yeah, which is fair.
I think the point I was trying to make was watch an entire season before you make a judgment.
Even that though, like that's a big commitment for American seasons.
Yeah.
And like you, if you're making a good show, you need to be able to pull people in like from episode 1 at least to a degree, enough to make them to want to keep watching. And then obviously the overarching interest gets better, but you still need to pull people in before that.
And to be honest, Breaking Bad did actually do a decent job of that. I just didn't want to watch it the first time I watched it.
That's why I was surprised, because like, I very much disagreed with you.
It's one of those things where like everyone loved it all of a sudden, and everyone was telling me to watch it. So I watched it just to kind of satisfy everyone, and then I was like, I really don't want to watch anymore. Like regardless of how good it was, and it was very good. I was just like, no, I just don't want to commit to it.
To be fair, like Ben spent ages trying to convince me to watch it. Like every time we went out, have you watched it yet? Have you watched it yet? I was like, no. I was like, and then I got to a point where I don't even know where to watch it. And then I found a channel on Sky to watch it, so I thought, well, I'll just jump on it now. And I sort of binged the whole thing in like a week and a half.
It's so good.
To be honest, I remember another thing that put me off it was there was an episode that basically Alec had a cough, and there was an episode that made Alec really paranoid. There was an episode that made Alec really paranoid that his cough was more than a cough, and then I was like, I don't want to get involved in this.
So what you're saying is Alec ruined it for you.
Alec ruins everything.
Poor Alec.
He's gonna watch this back and be like,
Oh,
"Fuck you guys,
you motherfucker."
All right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I keep thinking about watching Breaking Bad again, even though I've got so many shows that I want to watch. I'm just like, yeah, but what if I watch Breaking Bad again? It's really good.
Still holds up.
I remember watching the first season. Like, oh, this is actually quite funny. It's like a bit of dark humor, whatever. And then you get into the next few seasons, you're like, holy shit, this is really dark.
To be honest, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of done with Breaking Bad now, just because I didn't really like Better Call Saul, and I didn't really like the movie either.
Oh,
the movie?
Yeah, there's a Netflix movie.
It was a spin-off, kind of like about Jesse Pinkman and what happened to him after he escaped.
Oh, I think I might have heard about that when it was in the works, and then I completely forgot about it. Oh, I should watch that.
It's really, really brilliantly done, but at the same time, it's kind of like it probably didn't need to be made, but it's still a joy to watch.
Did Walter White survive then?
Yeah, in a way.
I think your experience of it, John, is basically what happened in like the mainstream consciousness as well, because it kind of got released and everyone was like, yeah, and then like 2 days later, everyone was like, what was that?
If it didn't exist, it wouldn't be like the end of the world, you know.
Yeah, but then that's the same with Better Call Saul. As much as I do like it, it's got nothing. And to be fair, I didn't ever finish it. I need to go back and actually finish it. But
it gets good at season 3, though.
Oh, I've seen beyond that. I think. Or I think the end of 3 is where I watched, or like something along those lines. But it is really good. It's nowhere near as good as Breaking Bad, and it doesn't have the same like emotion to it. It doesn't have the same feeling to it. And I'm not saying I expect it to feel the same because it's a spin-off. Because just because it's in the same world, it doesn't mean it needs to feel the same. But it's just nowhere near the same level. So it doesn't feel as. I don't like using this word with media because I feel like it's a disservice, but it doesn't feel as important, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
It's like they're cashing in on a good thing, right?
Kinda, but like it doesn't feel like a cash in because it does feel like they actually put care and attention into the characters and the story. It's just like it is, as often is the case, the question of did this need to be made?
Yeah.
Speed Runners really caused multiple tangents tonight.
Jesus, we've gone all over the place.
I must admit, though,
talking about the N-word and.
I must admit, I find it quite hard to think about Blade Runner now, just because I don't know, it's quite a thought-provoking thing, but all of the thoughts that I've had about it were like 10 years ago.
The reason I find it hard to talk about is because, again, and again, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but the bulk of the story, the bulk of the film is just world building. Like, realistically, if you just look at the content, there isn't much that happens. If you look at like the A to B, it's actually very short. But so like there isn't actually a lot to talk about other than like the sort of moral questions and stuff. And then once you've kind of done that, and you try not to do it too much because you don't want to make it the whole conversation. But Like after you've done that, you're like, oh, yeah.
It's basically like a day in the life.
Yeah,
kind of film, isn't
Kind of
it?
is, yeah.
pretty much, yeah.
It's you're watching a film and it's what's happening within like a day or two. But there's no real kind of like, oh, this happens, and then like 6 months later, then it carries on. It's just like the escalation of him doing that job, and it's yeah, pretty cool. Yeah. Because that was the thing, because I knew I was going to give it full marks anyway, because I know it's just like one of my favorite films. But when I did watch it again, I was kind of like, it did feel quite slow, and there was bits in it where I'm just like, okay. But my reasoning behind it is because I said before. But yeah, it isn't one of these films where you can watch it multiple times, like because I must have watched it, I don't know, say 1 or 2 years ago, because I bought the Blu-ray, and it's like watching it again. It's like, yeah, I know what happens. I know what happens. It's like Terminator 2, right? I've watched that film so many times that I'd get bored of watching it because
Yeah, there's certain styles of films
What?
that it's hard. It's
Yeah, I
hard
won't get
to.
bored of them.
no, seriously, like I remember watching it before and I actually fell asleep because I've seen it so many times. I know literally every scene.
I thought you loved Terminator.
I do, but
Right, but the
I've-
difference is that the certain types of movies, they rely on you not knowing the twists and turns and stuff. Like, and when you do, it's not so much that it becomes less interesting. It's just harder to enjoy it the same way as you would the first time around.
Yeah. To be fair, Terminator 2 it's almost like a sporting event because I think a lot of it kind of relies on you cheering the characters on, and if you know what they're going to do, you don't have that so much, do you?
it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you know that they're gonna win. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I know this bit. That's the bit with the motorbike, and this bit, and oh, he shoots him in the kneecaps because he's not actually going to kill him. It's like,
Wait, you're spoiling it. People that are watching this might not have seen it before.
Nobody watches this.
but
You don't know that.
But
Okay.
it's that kind of thing when you watch like Back to the Future, right? I don't know how many times I've watched that film, but I've lost count. And it's one of them things where if I watch it again, it's like I'm not going to really enjoy it as much because I've seen it so many times. It's like one of the things where, like, on the odd occasion, I'm like, oh, I might sit down and watch this, like if it's on the telly, just because it's like nostalgia. Or if there was like I went and see it at the Secret Cinema, I'm like, oh, this is a really cool event. Like they're doing like a immersive cinema experience, and I went and see it, and that was really cool because you had like the environment, and it was like an event. So I watched the film, but it's that kind of gets a bit, I wouldn't say stale as such, but yeah, it's like Blade Runner. Me, Ben, and David went to see it in the Secret Cinema, and that was really fucking cool because they had like indoor rain, and they had like all the neons, and it was so cool because you was in the environment and watching the film. It's the film, but yeah.
Yeah, the atmosphere was perfectly done.
Hmm.
To say and recaptured.
It was so cool. I gotta say, it was one of the best cinema experiences I've ever had. But yeah, so Blade Runner is really good. Cultural icon, basically. It's like it spawned so many different things. Like it spawned its own genre of like sci-fi. Like it's just it's crazy how much it's influenced like pop culture. Yeah. And Ridley Scott is really good. Just
He's all right.
he's really good at making films. He's not very good at reading. He's good at making films.
Doing it for long enough.
True.
I thought you were just complaining about how long the call was for a second. It's like, we've been here for long enough. Shut up.
Yeah. So
No, Ridley Scott's a fantastic director.
yeah. I think that's what I wanted to say. I think that's what when I was thinking about it the other day, I was like, what do I say? But there's so much like moral and all these different things that they touch on that you could talk about for fucking days.
No, yeah, definitely. And like I like while I appreciate both like, you know, thought provoking and quote unquote normal movies. But like I do feel like I generally prefer, like, I appreciate thought provoking ones more because I mean, as you guys all know from any time we come out of a fucking movie, I just really appreciate being able to have like a proper conversation about like what was going on and particularly your interpretation of it. Because like I think that especially these days, people are too concerned about tying up loose ends, and people will complain if they feel like any question has been unanswered. So a lot of movies that come out these days are like, they're very encapsulated, and while that can work and that there's not a problem with that in general, I feel like sometimes the story is compromised because of it, because like it's probably not the vision they had, just because people now these days are too like hungry for information. And I feel like people just need to realize that sometimes a question doesn't need an answer, and it's more interesting to leave it up to your imagination. Or like, you don't have to have an open question only because you want a sequel. It can be actually for the benefit of the story.
Well, saying about that, like what really annoyed me with like the Fast and the Furious films, and everyone's gonna roll their eyes because.
No, go on.
So basically, like in the first 3 films, like there's certain people that kind of they die, right? And then in another film, the person's in it, and you're like, what the fuck is this person doing in the film? And then they kind of do this whole thing of like, oh, this person didn't die. They just kind of had an accident, and then the person lost their memory, and they joined someone else's gang. And I'm just like, you're really pulling at straws here to bring this famous actor back into the franchise. And
and a lot of things do that, to be fair. Like, I mean, comics do it all the fucking time. Like, look at the Superman and Wolverine things. Like, it's like, oh, Superman's dead. Look, it's so amazing. Oh, it's a Kryptonian coma, and now he has a beard.
oh, it was just a robot before.
Right, and I get it. Like, arse pulls are done all the time. It's fucking lazy. Sometimes it works just fine. Because it is actually interesting. But like, for example, even in the Justice League movie, it's like they spent so much time talking about Superman and like making, at least in the original cut, and making it such a big deal. And it's like, yeah, we know everyone misses Superman. He's fucking Superman. Of course they miss him. Like, we also know what you're planning on doing. It's clear. Like, at least in this case, they actually did something to bring him back rather than it being like a dumb thing. Like,
he's just hidden in some fucking random place.
Well, it's kind of like the difference between the bit in the Fast and Furious movies that you're talking about and the bit in the latest movie. Has anyone here not seen it that cares about spoilers?
I have not watched it, but I'll probably watch it like in 10 years or something when I can do it.
10 years.
Okay.
It took me years to watch the fucking Fast 7. I don't know which one.
I'm pretty sure Pat's seen it. Ben, do you care?
No.
Or have you seen it? No? Okay. So obviously the one Dan's talking about is his Dom's partner. She like dies and then she comes back, but she's lost her memory, blah, blah, blah. In the new one, we find out that the Asian dude who died in the Tokyo Drift movie, which is the worst movie, by the way, just want to make that clear.
It is absolute dog shit.
It's not a Fast and Furious movie. They tried something different and it didn't fucking work. Anyway, yeah, that was actually a fake death, and he's alive. Yeah, he comes back, and it was all faked, and
is he a hologram or something?
No, it was just literally the I can't remember the guy's significance from the other movies. I think he's just like a super secret agent guy or whatever. He helped him fake his death because they needed him to look after the key of this thing, which is a little girl.
There was a moment where you were saying that where there was a look on Pat's face as if to say, "Oh, really?"
The only look on face, the only look on Pat's face I noticed is when I said Tokyo Drift was the worst movie, and he went.
It is absolutely.
Yeah, it's
I
not.
I think that film is brilliant.
It's awful.
It's not, Pat. It's absolute garbage.
The characters in it are shit. The story is bad.
They put a hillbilly.
yeah, like
as the main character, and you can't understand what he's saying. He's like,
yeah, who comes back in the new one, and I was like, I still can't fucking understand you. And also, it just shows how insignificant your movie is that you're so much of a side character in this new one.
Oh, I just don't. I just hate that. It's like, oh, we're gonna bring this person back. It's like there's just no need. No one really cares. That film was like 3 films ago, and no one really remembers it because most of the people that watch them, right, they don't really give a fuck. They just go, oh look, explosions, car chases. Oh look, there's a submarine coming out of the ice.
I watch it for the family.
What was it? I read the other day it was like Fast and the Furious like 1000, and it's like Dom becomes overlord of the world.
Is what John has said isn't the most ridiculous thing in that film.
What? I think they just go, oh, we want to make something more ridiculous than the last film. It's like, no, just stop making them. They become irrelevant when you made the fucking
That's the thing that bugs me about this movie is that like the whole point of these movies after the first one, because the first one I actually think is a fantastic movie, like it's really good. And then although I like every single movie apart from the third one, although I like every single movie after that, I recognize that they're bad movies. I just enjoy them. But the whole point after the first movie was that they were escalating each time and they were making things more crazy. And okay, yes, in this one they go to space, which is supposed to be like the big thing. But yeah, they go to space in a car. But generally speaking, like the things that actually happen in this movie, apart from the space thing, which is actually a very minor point, and apart from like there being a stealth bomber in it at one point, the escalation isn't really there. I feel like this is a much tamer movie than the last one, which I found very strange.
Ironic.
I don't know. Pat might disagree with me on that. But I found this to be much tamer in terms of what they were doing.
And maybe they can't go any higher.
I'll let you know over the next month when I watch through them all again.
No, please don't. Don't wait.
It's the event, Dan.
Yeah.
I love Fast and Furious. I'd probably watch all them in a week.
Fucking week for those two.
He'll get confused about which one to watch first.
Yeah, do you watch Fast and the Furious or Fast and Furious?
Fast 6 and Furious.
I just look at the year it comes out.
Oh, but what if it's a re-release?
What if it's a prequel?
It's not a re-release. It's not old enough to be.
The shitty Tokyo Drift one that's supposed to be set in the past.
All we know for sure.
In another film.
Actually, no. I was going to say all we know for sure is that you need to watch Too Fast, Too Furious second, but that's not second chronologically.
No, it's not. It's just stupid. I think they kind of had a good thing and then they just think, oh, we'll make loads of money out of it. We make loads of money making these shitty films. We're going to make more.
Basically, what happened is it's what Adam Sandler does. Where he just like he takes his mates on holiday and they film it and then they make loads of money off of it. But now it's like Dom and his family and they just I probably won't watch them all again for the event, but I might watch the first one again because I actually do think the first one, at least from memory, is really good. Yeah, although I might get a bit sad about I can never remember the guy's name, but obviously the guy who died. Yeah, I'm like
I was going to say the last one I've watched is the one where he died on filming it, and they see him in the end.
No, they CG him over his brother.
Yeah, but he's driving the car off into the sunset, and it's like, oh, that's a bit that hit me in the feels.
Well, there's actually a bit at the end of this, like the new movie, which is also kind of sad because it's like they're sitting down having a family meal, and then Dom's sister is there, and there's like an empty seat. And then she's like, "Oh, we're still like, where is he?" And she's like, "Oh, don't worry, he's on the way." And then it's like, man, like he would still be in these movies, and like the story would probably be very different if he was still in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like because like him and Dom were like the leads. So it's like, you know, they were both doing crazy shit, and fair enough, the other characters in the movie still do crazy things here and there.
Yeah, that was the main
but they were on the same level. It's like the Superman and Batman, like the two leads rather than like the supporting cast. So it would be interesting to see where things went. Like you might have had like some double fights going on with like Jason Statham and The Rock at the same time, and
Yeah.
I still need to watch their movie.
Oh, God.
Oh well, The Rock's not going to be in it anymore.
What?
He's confirmed it.
Wait, hang on. I thought the movie was already out.
No, I'm talking about the main series.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, what the fuck? The movie's about then. How can he not be in it anymore?
They deleted it from canon, right?
Because he's had a massive falling out of Vin Diesel. Like from what has been sort of reported, Vin Diesel got a little bit jealous because The Rock seemed to be a bigger star in his film. So he sort of created a drama, and now it's too much of a drama to continue both of them being in the same film.
I want to know how true that is, because like fair enough, I don't know what, like I know The Rock better than I know Vin Diesel just because of like wrestling and stuff, but yeah, we're mates. No, but like I feel like I know The Rock better. Obviously you never really know what people are like, even no matter how much you see them like on TV and whatever, but I never get the impression from Vin Diesel that he's a dick. Like he actually seems like a pretty decent dude. So like I can't imagine that happening, but if it did, that's interesting because that's very fucking childish. And also, if you're going to invite Dwayne The Rock Johnson onto your movie, you should know that he's probably going to be the biggest pull. Like even Rob, who hates him, probably recognizes that he will be the biggest pull in a movie for the most part.
I'll be dead in the cold ground before I recognise Dwayne.
I don't even call him The Rock. But
I have to say, I feel a bit disingenuous uploading this as Blade Runner.
Tom.
Hang on, did you just blame me?
Yeah, you derailing it, even though I was
Blade 2 Runner.
I was going to say, you're the one who started off talking about Shadowrun.
But that's related.
Yeah, so is The Rock.
So this is Dan's best performing film, and we've spent probably half of it talking about other shit.
It's fine. Dan doesn't care. He got a Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
this is what happens when we don't have Emmanuel and Alec.
I mean, to be fair, normally it's like I feel like normally it's me pulling Alec back in from whatever tangent he's going on. Or well, no, actually, I should say actually it's normally me and Alec going on a tangent, and then I stop us because I'm like, hang on, we're talking too long about this. I mean, like I don't see a problem with it personally. Like I think it's quite nice to just go off on tangents, but I'm a very tangential person, so. Like, as I'm sure you guys know from having known me for many years and had conversations with me, I can go on about 10 different tangents in one conversation and still have not gotten to the point of the first thing I was talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anytime that happens while we're talking, like, feel free to interject and just be like, yeah, so Blade Runner.
Yeah, Blade Runner.
Because normally I pay attention to it and I try and, like, cut into it and make sure it doesn't happen, but sometimes it flows.
Oh my god, we didn't even go through the different things. We didn't even go through story.
Oh, we didn't. We don't always, to be fair. We didn't do it last week either. Like often we just talk about shit, and I think that's fine because certain movies I think warrant going through each individual category, but some of them I think is fine to just talk about the experience of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's sometimes a bit of a chore to do it.
Yeah, like because that's the thing. I like us having the categories, and again, there are appropriate movies to talk through each individual one. But I do feel like it feels quite forced sometimes when you do it because you're like, so we're talking about the story. Because I often will be talking about the story, and then because so many of the categories are intertwined, I'll be like, oh, and then, like I'll go to say something, and I'll be like, oh, but that's kind of acting, or that's kind of production, and then I won't say it, and then I'll fucking forget.
Yep. Yeah, totally. It's like
I wouldn't worry about
that. Yeah. So like the production on the film, it's just.
I wouldn't worry about that. Yeah, no, me neither. So production.
I'm just gonna.
No, go on.
Production. It's just because it's, as I said before, for the time period, it's just outstanding. Even today, it holds up.
I actually said that to Rob yesterday, like just sort of half an hour into it. Like the production's unreal for a film that's what, nearly 40 years old.
Yeah, it came out 82, I think.
I think it does kind of benefit from being so dark as well, because like
Yeah.
I think there are certain bits where, like, if the film was any lighter, then it might be quite obvious it was 40 years old. But like, I mean, I'm not taking away from it because it still is like it still does look amazing. But
Yeah, and that is a design choice as well.
It definitely worked towards it definitely it worked with the limitations of the time. I think it did that very well.
Yeah, it's like the conversations we've had before about how like old sort of gritty, grainy movies, like the way that they did things was designed around that, and it's same kind of way. Like, not to always bring things like fucking talk about back to games, but it's the same kind of thing as like the reason why so many like Nintendo games are timeless is because they always went above and beyond and like absolutely maximized what they could do with the system they had, and they like did all sorts of tricks and like techniques to make things look amazing, even though by rights for the power for that system it had no right to. Same kind of thing with movies, like with the grainy stuff, they will actually incorporate things that only really work because of that. So then when you get like the HD or 4K remakes, it's like, oh, looks a bit naff, really, doesn't it?
I will say the 4K upscaling for Blade Runner is worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Like the Blu-ray, the one version I've got, it makes everything like super duper crystal clear, and it's like, wow, you can see more details than probably you could have seen back whenever it was made. But,
yeah, fuck, I muted myself while I was talking. Yeah, like Rob said before, like for some movies, it is absolutely a detriment to be able to see more, because the point was that you couldn't see more, so they did, the techniques they used were in line with that. So when you can see more, it's like, ugh. But depending on the movie, being able to see more is better.
The only thing I could say made it seem a little bit dated was you can see the matte paintings in the background, like when the cars fly into the background. You can see they're not the actual real like set theme. If that makes sense. It's like,
it's like the only time that I've really seen that as a problem is in Temple of Doom. So there's a bit where they walk into like a settlement, and it's very obvious that the back is like 2D.
it's very. It was very apparent in the Batman original films. Like when you look at Gotham, they're like painted pictures.
Yeah, like that's what I was going to say. When you were saying like the production holds up really well, I was going to say, yeah, like 99% of it does, but the flying car bit really does like take me out of it for a second.
See, that was one of the bits where I was like, because it's so dark, like it pulls it off. I didn't really see a problem. I didn't really spot the matte painting so much in that.
It's not the matte painting so much that I noticed. It was just the effects on the like flying car thing that bugged me a bit.
Really?
The smoke plumes that come out.
No, it was more just like the motion of the car. Like it felt very, this is old, which is fine, but like that just obviously means it doesn't hold up super well.
I just had a look, Pat. The 4K release was a restoration of the original film.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whose movie is it now?
I was just.
Well, we've got to talk more about it.
I was just gonna say, like, when they say restoration, I'm assuming it's like just updating the colors and textures and stuff.
It's more than that. It's more like going back to the original film negative and just like getting the original master and just re-enhancing it from that, rather than just upscaling it digitally and getting it back from the source.
Yeah, so it's kind of just like, it's a complete new transfer rather than just sort of taking an old transfer and making it bigger.
It was done properly, in other words.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, because like imagine like a simple example would be like if you save a picture from Facebook, it's not very good quality, whereas if you like was to print it out or get it from the original camera, it would be a lot better.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, good film.
Rob, what's your film?
So my film, my
Oh,
film
good
was originally going to be another Ridley Scott film.
Ooh.
We had to rearrange things, so I had to save that one. But yeah, I was thinking like a little while ago about what the last film that I saw in the cinema was that I got really excited about, and
Star Wars.
actually it might have been now. No, it wasn't. So the last Star Wars I got really excited about was the year before this one. But yeah, no, I was thinking about that, and it turned out to be the film that I actually discovered Blind Spotting through as well. So I thought it was worth picking on those two things.
Oh, what film is that, Rob?
And then I also thought as well, so it's by a director that I really like, and I wanna pick more of his films, but his style can be a bit hard to penetrate. So I wanted to pick this.
Michael Bay.
No, it's not fucking Michael Bay. I don't want anybody thinking.
Zack Snyder.
I don't want anybody thinking that I like Michael Bay or Zack Snyder. But yeah, no, his style can be like a little bit hard to penetrate. So I thought if I pick this first, then when I pick more of his films later on, then I can refer back to it, and it works quite well. So my pick is Black Klansman.
The clans.
Ooh.
And how are you spelling Klansman, Rob?
How am I spelling Klansman?
How are you spelling? Because like it's not just Black Klansman, is it?
It's extra K's in there.
Oh yeah, there's like a little stylistic K in the middle, isn't there?
Yeah.
You're racist.
And it's
Have we-
Klansman.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, have we all seen it here?
Yeah,
Well,
Emmanuel's the only one who hasn't, I think.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
Well, then I'll just say this because we've all seen it. But the only obviously this was for next week really, but the only part of the movie that I'm just a bit like, what is the end of it? It's fucking weird.
Oh,
Well,
well,
I'm looking forward to talking about that actually, because that's one of the things where.
Yeah.
But
it's the summer bit.
there's another Spike Lee film that I really want to pick, and it's a similar thing where like the ending kind of bowls you over a little bit. But I think in Black Klansman, well, we'll talk about it next week.
all I'll say is it's appropriate, and I think it's important to put it in there. It's just kind of jarring
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
because you know it's a movie, and then it becomes like kind of like a documentary bit at the end. But anyway,
It does.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember that bit now.
It's weird because it goes as a bit of like I wouldn't say like a not satirical. It's got like a bit of a comedy, like.
Yeah, the execution towards it.
And then the end of it is just like, this is a serious problem because this happens, and you're just like, whoa.
That's one of the reasons why I think it's such a well-made film, because like it's. Oh, we're going to end up going too much into it. This
We
week.
are.